Hey, welcome back to another adventure. So, in this video, I'm going to try to turn an oak bowl. Now, I found a slab that nobody wanted because it had some huge cracks running through it, and I picked it up super cheap. This slab was about 30 inches wide and about 12 foot long and about 3 inches thick. And I bought this whole slab for 35 bucks. Because, like I said, nobody wanted it, but I thought it would make some cool bowls. And I'm thinking I can fill these cracks with a colored epoxy and create something that's pretty unique. So I cut some rounds, and here I've got one mounted to a faceplate, and I'm going to clean it up and get it round and see what these cracks look like and try to decide how to go about filling them and making some cool bowls. So step number one, make the thing round, and then we'll get a tenon cut. What you're looking at will end up being the bottom of the bowl. So we'll get it cleaned up. Now, the first mistake I made when doing this is my brain is thinking I'm going to turn these bowls just like a regular bowl, expose those cracks, and then fill them. And I did way too much. I should have just cleaned up the outside to expose the cracks and then fill them with epoxy. I had some issues trying to get epoxy down in those cracks. I found that air would get trapped inside and leave gaps in the epoxy. It would have worked much better if I would have just cleaned it up, exposed the cracks both on the side and the bottom, turned a tenon, and then filled everything with epoxy and finished. But I didn't do that. But like I said, this is an adventure. I've never done anything like this before, and we're going to learn as we go along. So here we've moved the tool rest. We're going to true up that back face and get ready to cut a tenon. This is some very, very hard wood, and this is the hardest wood I've turned yet. It's definitely not like the cherry and the maple that I've done previously. Um, this was a bear, but going slow and continuously sharpening the tools, it worked. The big trick is keep the tools sharp. It was a bear, and it was a pain in the butt continually sharpening tools. And you'll notice that I switched over to my carbide tools because I got tired of sharpening. So here we're getting a compass set up to mark out that tenon. Make some cuts. This is a carbide tip detailing gouge. Works really well to mark the edge of that tenon. And now this is a round carbide tip. And we're going to cut the relief. And like I said, I should have just cut it down to expose the cracks, got my tenon in it, and then poured epoxy in it. But I didn't do that. I spent way, way too much time trying to finish this thing, thinking that I could just pour some epoxy in the cracks and everything, and then just dress it up a little bit. Didn't work out that way. It was a pain, and it was on the lathe, off the lathe, trying to fill these cracks. I did 11 bowls in this run, and did all of them the same way. I won't do it again. I've got tons more of this wood, and I plan on making a bunch more of these bowls. Now here you can see I'm scraping it, finishing it up, and that was a waste of time and energy. I ended up having to do all this over again because of the epoxy. But live and learn. That's what it's all about. That's what makes this so much fun for me, is I'm challenging myself to do new and different things, and I'm learning as I go, trying different things, seeing what works best for me. And that's one of the big things with lathe work and woodworking in general. Everybody has their way of doing things, what works best for them. There is no set way of doing anything. Try different things. Watch YouTube videos. See how other people are doing it and try it. See if it works for you. Eventually, you'll find your own techniques that work best for you. Just like using the gouges. Some people like the high-speed tool gouges, and that's all they'll ever use. Some people like the carbide tip gouges, and that's all they'll ever use. I've found that depending on what I'm doing, I'll switch back and forth. I'll use high-speed steel, I'll use carbide, whatever works best for the job at hand. Here again, I am spending way too much time trying to finish the outside of this bowl, which was a huge mistake because I ended up having to do it all over again after I poured the epoxy in this thing. Now here, if you look close, you can see some of the cracks being exposed on the bottom and more so on the sides, even though the cracks were there on the sides when I started. But the bowl is taking shape, and I'm trying to get a nice smooth surface on it, and that just wasn't necessary at this point. Well, it's looking pretty good. It's got it pretty well where I want it on this bowl. But checking out all those cracks, trying to decide what to do, and there again, like I said, I'm spending way too much time trying to finish this thing up like I would do with a normal bowl. And that just didn't work in this scenario. Oh well, live and learn. So now we're cleaning up the front face down to the plate. I don't know. I like to do that before I flip them around. Gives me a place to start when I start hollowing out. Um, I know some of you experienced wood turners are screaming that I'm doing everything wrong, but this is what's worked for me. I am not a formally trained wood turner. I've never taken a lesson, never worked with anyone else. My knowledge is simply from videos I've watched on YouTube and just getting on the lathe and trying it out. I figured out what works for me, and I'm sure I'll change over time as I learn and do more turnings. But for right now, this works. And for all of you, that's how you've got to do it. Spend some time on the lathe, play with the different tools, and see what works best for you. And start turning. That's all I can say. Start turning. You'll figure it out. Uh, there's just a few basic things that you need to know, and you can get started. So now we've got the outside where I want it. We're going to flip this thing around and hollow it out. And for some reason, I lost the footage of me hollowing out the inside. But if you want to watch me hollow out a bowl, flip to the end grain bowl videos, and you can watch me hollow something out. You can see here I've poured some epoxy. There was a big chip that came out of the side, and I just taped both sides and filled it up with epoxy and tried to fill all the cracks. Worked out pretty good, not 100%. As you can see, I'm turning off all that epoxy and trying to finish up this bowl, thinking this would be the end of it, but spoiler alert, it wasn't. And we had to do another epoxy pour on it. But you'll see the process here of cleaning this thing up. Again, I'm using carbide tipped tools. They just seem to work better, especially with the epoxy. I don't know. Maybe I just don't know how to use the high-speed steel tools, or I'm not sharpening them properly. You know, I don't have a high-dollar sharpener. I'm just sharpening them on a regular bench grinder. It works. I don't know. Maybe they'll be better when I get the money to buy all the fancy sharpening tools. But for right now, this is all I've got. And I'm not going to not turn just because I don't have a fancy sharpener. So here we're cleaning up the inside, trying to get the wall thickness where it needs to be and get this thing finished up. The cracks filled with epoxy look really, really nice in my opinion. I think this is going to turn out being a very beautiful bowl. You can see there the big hunk of purple on the edge where I had a big hunk of wood chip out. But it's going to be a nice bowl. And we're just going to spend some time cleaning everything up, getting rid of all the tool marks, and getting it pretty well finished up. Here I'm cleaning up all the epoxy that leaked out on the back side. Um, Sorry for the camera angles. I don't have all the fancy camera equipment yet, so I can get multiple angles, and with my shop as small as it is and the lathe kind of pushed back in a tight spot, I can't get the camera around on the back side to show what I'm doing. But I'm just cleaning it up, trying to get this thing finished up. There's still some cracks that didn't get filled, and that edge that I poured isn't quite high enough. So we're going to have to do a little tweaking to it, add a little more epoxy to get it finished up. And there it is. It'll show you what it looks like at this point. I hope you can see it. You can see there's still some problems there in that fill. Still a few cracks that need to be finished up, but it's going to look good when it gets done. There's the back side. Looking pretty decent, but we just need to do a little bit more work. So this is where we're going to end the video for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you like and subscribe and come back next week. Click that bell for the notification and you can see the finished product. And hopefully we'll have not only this bowl but a few of the other ones, and you can see how they turned out. I think they're going to look really good with the color streaks going through them. But you'll have to come back next week to find out. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time. Bye.